get in touch with us. tellthevillage@gmail.com. And one of those people that did get in touch with us at gmail.com is John Sue, one of the founders of an organization called Indigenous Innovations. And I first met John a couple of years ago when he wandered into the studio at Co-op Radio to see what was going on. And before long, he was in front of the microphone telling us about his new project, Indigenous Innovations. And John has gotten in touch with us to give us an update on goings on at Indigenous Innovations, and this is what he had to say. Tell us some of the highlights of the last couple of years.
The biggest thing that I'm most proud of and our clients are most proud of is our First Nations Nasal Narcan program. So are you familiar with what nasal Narcan is?
Narcan, it's the anti-overdose medication, and nasal you can shoot it up the nose, and you don't have to inject it.
Yeah, 100%. So it's the drug that reverses an overdose and saves someone's life. So it's not something you get high on. It's not something that you use for leisure. It's actually only used at the moment that someone's overdosing, going blue.
It's a life-saving medication.
100%.
And so, tell me about what you've been up to with nasal Narcan.
So we have a First Nations nasal Narcan program where our First Nation clients come together because their status benefits cover nasal Narcan, which is $180 per box. And they've actually come together with us and our pharmaceutical partners. And we have been helping the downtown east side by supplying nasal Narcan to the neighborhood through our clients, through their friends, everything. So this is a collaboration between all three parties. And in 2021, we saved and prevented over 4,000 overdose deaths.
So the nasal Narcan was used that many times.
Yeah. When you think about it, I had a statistic from OPS in 2016. This is a supervised consumption site. They were having 80 overdoses a month on average. And so if you think about 80 times 12 is 960 overdoses that they are saving lives at the monitored consumption site. We saved over 4,000.
Aha. And you made an agreement with the supplier of the nasal Narcan?
No, we actually have to get the clients to go apply and get the nasal Narcan so that we can have it, and then our clients are distributing it. We are distributing it.
I see.
This is like a three-way collaboration from three different parties to fight the war on drugs in the downtown east side.
Aha. And so you're sort of like creating a net of folks that are distributing this medication.
Yeah, we're getting everyone into this. So this is like a citizen to citizen collaboration. It's not a government agency, even though that's the programs that run it. This is people helping people. This is what the social industry should be. But if you look at kind of, this is the biggest thing that I've discovered about the medical and social agency. Two agencies that the intention when developed is to support and help people. But if you talk to anybody who uses the services, they feel like a number. They feel like, hey, I gotta take care of you. They don't feel like they are treated like a human being. And the number one reason why that is the case is because our social industry and our medical industry, their intention is to help people. But if you look at how they service their clients, it's actually more about avoiding litigation first, helping somebody second. And I'm not just saying that out of my ass. That's talking to nurses who say they have been reprimanded or directly told, you can't do that because that's not how we do it. Or, hey, it's not my job, talk to somebody else.
And so Indigenous Innovations, How is it changing that relationship?
So here's the number one thing that changes that relationship. We are not a medical professional. We are not a government agency. The government doesn't pay our bills. We don't have that legal obligation or that bureaucratic rules to govern us. We've brought back to the medical system and the social agency the the human touch of people helping people. That's what we do with our clients. So, good example. Just last week, I had a client just got out of the hospital, emergency, had a heart attack, had a stent put in his heart. He didn't have the money to get the medication. So I had to call his pharmacy and say, hey, can we get this covered? The pharmacist wasn't so familiar with his coverage because he's from the Niska band, not First Nations. So I had to walk the pharmacist through what to do. But the thing is, we're just a business. So we're able to have those, how do we say, off the record conversations because I'm not a professional. The pharmacist is. So I would say to him, okay, off the record, if the client doesn't have the money, what are his options? The pharmacist, well, off the record, his options are one, if he has the money, pay for it. Two, call an ambulance and just fake a heart attack, go to the hospital and get the medication. The medication he needs is a specific medication that's not covered by his benefits. So you have to get a special request to get authorized. And it was only $30. But literally, his doctor said he needs the specific medication or he will die. So it's somebody's life over $30. The pharmacist could never say this to the client, but he can say it to me off the record. So after talking to the pharmacist, I called the client back because there's no liability on me. I said, you got two options. Option number one, you call an ambulance and say you're having a heart attack, go there and get the medication to save your life because he had no more for that day. Or two, you find $30 somewhere and you go buy that. And the pharmacist actually said, I'll sell it to him at cost. I won't make no money because I understand the situation. Because I told the pharmacist the situation.
Aha. Remarkable. And so you're like an advocate for folks who are navigating the healthcare system and other agencies.
100%. I'm the advocate who's not restricted by any legal obligations because I'm not the one actually servicing them. All I'm saying is, here's a tip, but wherever they go to get the actual product or the service, the liability lies with them. So that's kind of like an insight into the system and knowledge of knowing law. You cannot be held liable if you're not providing the service. Whoever's providing the service holds the liability, but you can say, well, here's your choices. Do what you want to do. I'm just information.
Aha.
And that's just kind of playing the game.
And where did the idea, the seed come from for Indigenous Innovations?
It was born through the whole thing of my partner who's First Nations, Adrian Beaverbones from the First Nations Ochies band in Alberta. He told me his uncle didn't know how to get a walker. And that just blew my mind because I'm not Indigenous, but I know that Indigenous people have their stuff covered by the government. And I said to him, what do you mean your uncle doesn't know how to get it? You get a prescription, you go to the store, you give him, the information and you get it for free. And he just looked at me point blank and he said, I know that, you know that, but my people do not know that. And that's how the whole idea was brought is we can help First Nations in Canada because they've got health coverage. There's a demand for somebody to make the medical system easy and simple to use. Mm-hmm. And also knowing, because I was in business for a long time, every small business, its biggest challenge is sales and marketing. So if I'm able to bring those two parties together and get myself in the cash flow of things, there's a business opportunity there.
And while we're talking cash flow, where does the funding for Indigenous Innovations come?
So we are paid as a marketing and promotion company because small businesses, that's where our clients get the services. There's an eyeglass person, a dentist, there's a denturist, there's a foot doctor. They're getting their services at some small business. So if I'm marketing and promoting to an untapped market, especially when the government pays direct, that's a win-win-win for everybody.
Aha. So you have like a stable of service providers that you represent.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a network of service providers that I represent that one are on board with the same goal and mission that we have to help First Nations improve their medical experience.
Aha. And you guys are operating in Edmonton and Vancouver?
Right now, we're just in Vancouver and we're just doing phone work by Edmonton. We're not so much in Edmonton anymore.
Aha. And so is the team just you and Adrian still, or has the team expanded?
Yeah, so in the last 2 years, the team has expanded, and one thing that I think has really made us successful is that we are Indigenous focused way of treating people. One thing I realized is the current medical system is not Indigenous friendly. So we have, in the last 2 years, we've had a resident elder, Kelly White from the Musqueam Band. She's our guiding matriarch who tells us about the values, the history, where the people have come from, what are the challenges. We've also added one team member, Jana Ray Tom from the Navajo Nation. She's also very culturally rich, has done many workshops in the Indigenous community. So we've got a lot of female presence in our Vancouver office, but they are the guiding principle of how the organization moves. Because my understanding of Indigenous culture is very limited. I can rely on my partner and his family, but here in Vancouver, we need a Vancouver specific because Indigenous values, beliefs, and stuff do vary from region to region. Alberta is different from BC. BC is different from Saskatchewan. And it's just like small little variations. So we have a strong West Coast based Indigenous leadership that gives us the ideas, the values, promotions. How do we create an Indigenous friendly system? And that's what they've done to help me. And I'm just basically the guy who gets it done because like my strength is I'm the business builder, I'm the networker, I'm the one who creates the relationships, but I'm also very Western minded, Asian focused, right?
You're Asian, so you are an example of an ally of Indigenous people in moving forward.
Moving to Vancouver, I never realized how intertwined the Asian community and the Indigenous community are, especially in the downtown east side. I always get a good giggle when I see the Asian grandmas standing in line. Like there's a lot of Asians standing in those food lines, and I walk by and you hear them talking, and it's just hilarious. It's like the Joy Luck Club.
And you've been making contacts in the Asian community as well in your time in Vancouver?
Not so much because my Chinese is terrible. My Chinese is so bad that the Asian waitresses that can't speak English ask me to speak English because they can't understand my Chinese. Just imagine that. My Chinese is so bad, they'd rather prefer me speak English.
And so as an ally to Indigenous people, because there's a lot of talk these days about allyship, and I think you must be an example of a successful ally who's actually like doing that work. And I'm wondering if you have any pointers for other people who would care to contribute in that direction as well.
So one thing that I'm seeing a lot of, especially in rallies, in these movements like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, there's tons of people who show up to these protests. Come tomorrow, everyone's gone back to their own life. And all of these people who thought they had the support, they're like, where did everybody go? Because if you look at what people are protesting, it's the same damn thing. How many years later? How many years later? So what I suggest is don't be a frenemy to a cause. Don't be a frenemy to the Indigenous people. If you believe and support them, stand and support them on the day of the protest, but take that forward in the future. Do something different today to have a different future tomorrow. Don't just come there, create your social media posts, create flags and all that other stuff. Stand behind what you truly believe to show true support, not that fake stuff, not being a frenemy. Like I never like to talk publicly bad about someone, but I did my own research on Indigenous history, the blanket ceremony, the Indian Act, residential schools, how the government treated Indigenous in the land disagreements in court. I didn't have to dig very far to see that the Canadian government is the frenemy of Indigenous people. You read through those things, and you don't even have to read that much. You can tell the government abused the court system, the idea of freedoms and rights, and they use that against the Indigenous people. And that's when I couldn't even take any, I couldn't even read anymore. I was like, this is absolute garbage, where it's not even hidden. It's, if you just dug and you read it, there it is. But if you actually go into government promoted education, such as the one from University of Alberta, I took a Coursera course from University of Alberta, and my first thing was, and this was after researching residential schools and everything else. When I see them mention residential schools, it's like 2 sentences, and I thought, that's not an accurate statement of what happened. It's like saying the genocide was a lot of people died. You know what I mean? When you look at the court systems, there's a really big difference in your jail sentence when it's first-degree murder versus manslaughter. And what the Canadian government has done in terms of promoting the information and retelling history, they've taken basically first-degree murder and brought it so far off what actually happened and made it like an aggravated assault extreme. Somebody died, yeah.
They've reframed the story to soften the actual facts.
Not even reframed the story, they've minimized it to the point of inaccuracy.
And as an ally, one has to like do the learning and then step up and do the work.
I think the mistake is no bad guy will ever write the truth about their representation. That's like, you got to be a real sociopath if you have the kahunas to, if you're the bad guy writing history, and if you write it exactly for what it was, nobody would do that. And I think that's a major mistake, is allowing the Canadian government to regulate anything Indigenous. It's kind of like having Chuck Norris be the kung fu regulator.
So what other projects are you working on in the future?
So right now, our biggest challenge, or not our biggest challenge, our biggest project now is solidifying our presence in the Vancouver market and just letting people know that we exist. A lot of clients, even now, 2 years later, didn't even know we existed. And if they did, some clients have taken 1.5 years, 2 years to finally trust us enough to come in. So this year, we're actually going to double down on creating market presence. So we're going to have people, volunteers, walking around with red sweaters, and it's going to say First Nations Outreach and a big eagle on the back, Indigenous Innovations Outreach. We're going to create that community presence and break down every single barrier to access. If you have any questions, you can just find us on the street, because we're going to have people walking around, and it's just one of those things. We have to break down every single barrier, mental, physical, social, whatever it is. We're going to make it so easy that someone can just ask us, because there's somebody walking around consistently.
And so if there's an Indigenous person who's needing healthcare and wants to hook up with support, how can they find Indigenous Innovations?
So they can either find us 2 ways. One, we're going to have somebody wearing a red shirt with an eagle on the back. It'll say Indigenous Innovations Outreach. Or they can come to where we're located physically, which is 122 East Hastings, or what most people know, Brandy's Bar.
You're upstairs in Brandy's Bar.
No, we're actually, this is the funniest joke. We share the same door entrance as Brandy's bar. So we're at the very front of the entrance to the left. And I always tell the clients, if you've hit the bar, you've gone too far. Go back, we're on the left side.
And what's the path? So someone reaches out to you and they need glasses or healthcare or something. What's that process with you?
So our process is we want to take an intake form and say we can help with 4 things. We help with feet, teeth, eyes, and medicine. So we do stuff like orthotics, compression socks, knee braces, elbow braces. We also do dentures. We can refer dentists. We can find you a doctor to use. We can help you get glasses. We can help you get stuff from the medication, from the pharmacy. So for one good thing that we do with the pharmacy is when we know the medication can be approved, that's not on the main list of approval, we'll actually help you write that form to get the approval for a medication. So I'm going to share a story with you. We had an elder who had pain medication that she has to take every 3 years for her back, and it's excruciating pain. She basically needs it because it drastically changes the quality of her life. It's $460 every 3 months. Every time her kids got to pay for it, or else if they don't got money, guess what? She just got to take it dry and suffer through until they do find money. So we actually chased down a doctor's office to submit the documents and followed up with that doctor's office for 3 months until it finally got approved. So now she knows for the rest of her life, she doesn't have to worry about getting that pain medication. And it's very heartwarming and sad. She's like, no one's ever done this for me. She's an elder. She's a senior.
You're doing excellent work, John. Excellent work. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks so much. Really appreciate this opportunity.
That was my conversation with John Sue of Indigenous Innovations. And, one thing we do at the village is when we speak to somebody, we invite them to make a musical request. And, well, John requested something that's a little bit outside of our general fare, but it's got a real swing to it. And I ask you to consider Eazy-E, Real Motherfucking G.